Hello, it's Dr. Darnise, and welcome back into another episode here on the channel. Today we're talking about Bishop Carlton Pearson. Y'all remember him, Bishop Carlton Pearson, right? He's the Gospel of Inclusion. That ring light is on there. Do you remember Azusa? Those of you of a certain age, those of you who maybe grew up in the Pentecostal church, you remember Bishop Carlton Pearson and Azusa and how all the big ministers, Christian ministers, were trying to get on his stage in Oklahoma, right? In Tulsa. He had a huge congregation. He was hugely famous, for a Christian minister and influential, especially in Pentecostal circles, conservative Christian black circles. Everybody knew Carl Pearson, and people loved him. Bishop Pearson put people on, as they say. He put people on. T.D. Jakes, for one. Do you remember how they turned on him? These people turned on him. So the reason I want to talk about him today is because he's somebody who I consider to be the privilege of knowing, even a little bit. And I don't know, it's a story. It's a story, and I'll share that with you. But he is now transitioning. If you have not heard, he is someone who has he has shared with the world that he's had cancer. And, he's been in remission for many years, and it has come back. And it looks like he's essentially in hospice care at this point. And, so a lot of people, myself included, are trying to give him his flowers, right? To let him know as he transitions from this life that he is well regarded and that he has done his work and he can rest easy. Now, you might follow him on Facebook, and, people are on there giving a update as to his health and, prayers and all of this stuff. And then there's this other faction, and that's kind of why I'm making this video. This other faction of people who are ready to condemn him to hell. These Christian ministers who are like, well, he turned his back on the gospel, and therefore, as he dies, he's going to hell. These are the ministers who give Christianity a bad name. This is why so many people don't want to be Christian no more, as James Baldwin would say. Don't want to be Christian no more. They are showing up as just hateful. How you going to say to somebody transitioning from this life that they're going to hell? Like, what kind of... Okay, so again, if you're not really following this, you could just Google Bishop Carlton Pearson, and you can kind of see the hate, and you can see people trying to capitalize on his name and his status, even as they criticize him, even as the man is passing away. And it's despicable. It's just despicable. So let me backtrack and say Carlton Pearson was really one of the most well-known, well-regarded Pentecostal ministers in the country, at least. And he had a revelation. He shares a story that he has a revelation. So he was a good conservative. He went to Oral Roberts, University. He was the man, very conservative himself. He had a revelation though, and God showed him, I don't put people in hell. You all do that. I don't condemn people to hell. So Bishop Pearson felt like that was the next stage of his ministry, and that was the gospel that he needed to share. Well, when he did that, you can imagine the traditional conservative Christians, they just threw him by the wayside, right? And they said he's teaching a false gospel. And I suppose, from their perspective, that's what it is. But this is his book, Carlton Pearson, The Gospel of Inclusion. And he tells his own story in this book. And there's a movie called Come Sunday. I'm not sure what platform it's on. You just Google Come Sunday, Bishop Carlton Pearson, it'll come up. I don't know who has it now, but you can watch it. But I just want to read a little bit from the jacket cover. Speak the name Carlton Pearson, and you will get one of two reactions: heretic or prophet. Pearson was a Christian megastar, host of his own TV show, traveling in private jets to speak at evangelical Christian gatherings. His church, Higher Dimensions, drew 5,000 people every Sunday. He was considered by some to be the heir apparent to Oral Roberts. Then, several years ago, Pearson watched everything he had built crumble due to scandal. He didn't have an affair. He didn't embezzle church funds. He stopped believing in hell. Following a revelation, he began to preach that a loving God would not condemn most of the human race to burn in the fires of hell for eternity. Shocked, the Pentecostal community made him an outcast. He lost his good name, his church, and his livelihood. Such hateful intolerance made Pearson realize that not only the dogma of hell, but the controlling doctrines of religion itself were a threat to human happiness. I'm just going to look and see, when did this book come out? Did I ever get his autograph in this book? I don't believe it have the autograph. Let me see. I'm trying to separate the pages. And it is not coming apart. Well, I said I was going to share my story that I have with Carlton Pearson. Now, as I said, he put a lot of people on. Like, this was 2006 when this came out. 2006. A lot of those people who he put on, they abandoned him when he came out with this new revelation. And he said, just like any of us have a prayerful life and we, feel like God shares something with us and we integrate that into the way we minister, that's what he was doing. And he went before his congregation and he started to share that. And people were outraged. They were so upset. And he was teaching something that was against the gospel. And he said, no, we got it wrong when we were teaching that God will condemn people to hell. How are we going to teach that God is compassionate and merciful and loving, and at the same time say that God is going to condemn you for and torture you for an eternity? What kind of God is that? Those are inconsistent. But we know that is the Christian doctrine, right? If you don't accept Jesus, then you're going to hell. So many of the people, T.D. Jakes included, they turned their back on Bishop Pearson, and like I just read, his everything that he built in terms of his church went away. Right? People left, and he couldn't sustain it. People left. Anyway, so that meant that he was kind of floundering for a while, trying to find out where he was supposed to be. I mean, he was a man who was used to having, being able to call anybody on the phone and people respond. And, he'd had this ministry for decades. And so, he was used to having a certain status and people responding. And so then he lost all of that. Christians turned their back on him. And where we are now, many of those Christians who turned their back on him, it's like they're gloating over his death right now. It's just disturbing. And that's why I had to make a video. I'm like, this is so disturbing. These people are about to dance on his grave because they feel they're right, theologically right. And even if they feel that way, why would you dance on somebody's grave? Many of them got their come up because of him. Many of them now are trying to get their come up because of him. Some of these ministers are creating panel discussions in their communities or on the internet. They're having panel discussions about how he was wrong theologically. And that just because he's passing on now doesn't mean that, all is well. Anyway, it's just despicable, and I can't I guess not say anything. We don't know how much longer he's going to be with us. I mean, I guess we would say he's in home hospice right now. But he may yet hold on. We don't really know, and God bless him in his journey. I think like Jimmy Carter has been in home hospice for like a year, so we don't know. And all people can do now is make him comfortable and hold him in prayer, whatever God you believe in. So here he comes with this gospel of inclusion, which says that God accepts everybody. It is a gospel of inclusion, not exclusion. That became his message. And as I said, he floundered for a while. He didn't have a church, right? He didn't have that. But he's a minister, right? This has been in him for his whole life. He was raised in this Pentecostal church. He came up the ranks. This is what he knows, right? And so he was looking for a new space to be. And one of the places where he landed, at least for a while, is in the New Thought community. Now, some of y'all might not know New Thought in particular, but that's my book back there, Beyond Christianity, African Americans and New Thought Church. So I'm really a scholar of New Thought spirituality. Some of y'all might know the Unity Church, religious science, science of mind, divine science, those kind of things. Yeah, where we talk about you have the power to create your reality by the way you think. That's us. I know it's a whole lot of other people out here talking about manifesting and just think positive and things will happen for you. Well, there's a whole religious movement called New Thought, which is the basis, one basis as a religion that really is the foundation of this thing that has become known superficially as manifesting. Anyway, this is story time. Okay, I'm gonna have to just call this story time. So I wrote that book. That was my doctoral dissertation. It's called, again, Beyond Christianity. And it was published after I finished my doctorate, my PhD. It's published by New York University Press. So it's out there in the world, right? And this is part of the story. So hang in. I know it's taking me some time to get it out. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get it out. So there I'm teaching at my university in LA, and not just going about my life teaching and whatnot. So one day I come back from class, I come into my office on campus, and I have a message on the phone. It's this man on my phone. Let me tell you something. This is funny. I did not return his call because I thought it was not really him. Because why would he be calling me? I just told you his status. Why would he be calling me? If he was calling me, here I am in my New Thought, very, esoteric, metaphysical kind of spaces. I mean, if this man is calling me, he probably called and tell me I'm a heretic. Probably read my book and say I'm a heretic, right? Anyway, and his message was very nice. He was like, I'm Bishop Carlton Pearson, and maybe you've heard of me, and we have a mutual friend, and that's why I'm reaching out to you. I read your book, and I really would like to speak to you. So I didn't believe it was him. I probably 2 or 3 days passed by, and I called our mutual friend, another professor, who I think he was behind me in our doctoral program. We didn't go to the same school, but he was maybe a year or two behind me in finishing up his dissertation. So I called him and I said, his first name Jonathan. I said, Jonathan, why didn't you tell me that he was going to be calling me so I could be ready? Oh yeah, I did give him your number. You gave him my number, but you didn't tell me he was calling so that when he would call me, I wouldn't be like, no way, just what? So he didn't tell me. It's like, if Oprah called you on the phone and left a message, would you really think it's Oprah? I didn't think it was really. Anyway, Jonathan tells me it is. Call the man back. So I called him back, and we had a good conversation as he was trying to sort out theologically where he fit. Because he was like, I've been a Pentecostal my whole life, but now I'm expanding beyond the category of religion. He was expanding beyond the category of religion. He knew what to do with that. So, like my book, Beyond Christianity, African Americans in a New Thought Church, when I say to you, I really, maybe there's a handful of us who study African Americans in New Thought. Not really, it's me. If you, there are some Black people in New Thought churches who attend churches, yes. Agape in LA, oh my God, Christ Universal in Chicago, under Johnny Coleman, another, icon in New Thought Christianity. There are pockets of us. But as far as like actual um, scholarship, it's me. Okay, so he was looking for theologically where he's going to fit in, and so I talked to him a great deal about what New Thought is, and was that really a match for where he was going to be? And he ended up going to Christ Universal Temple in Chicago and studying with Johnny Coleman in her later years, and Reverend Michael Beckwith from Agape in LA, who I knew also. And so they were really kind of working with him, like, are you going to fit in this new thought space, this metaphysical kind of religious space now, or spirituality? We do metaphysics here. We don't believe in a literal man in the sky kind of God. We are about empowering people from the inside. We're about teaching that you have the power to co-create your own reality. As Michael Beckwith says, we come up higher. We're not thinking about, there was one man who died for you, and that's how you are going to go to heaven when you die. Mm-mm. Jesus was a way shower. Jesus said, this is how you do it, but you got to do it. Okay. Anyway, we started to have, this back and forth conversation. He had a conference. I ended up going to his conference. And I met many of the people I still am associated with, many ministers, many people who are well known. And so at this point, as I said, I just really can't believe that people would be so mean and hateful to practically be dancing on the man's grave. He's not even in it yet. Because what is also happening is they're building up their own whatever status, name, money by talking about him. You're going to talk bad about somebody and elevate yourself because you present yourself as if you know more than he did. He has been so influential. Like if you're on Facebook and you go to his page, Carlton Pearson, you will see like so many people who are ministers, who are prominent people, who are posting things because he impacted so many people for generations, right? And yeah, he took a real big hit when he started to transition away from a traditional Christian doctrine. They abandoned him. And, ever since then, it's been really hard for him to find really a church per se. So, of course, he created himself. He started calling himself a Metacostal, combination of metaphysical and Pentecostal, a Metacostal, because he was like, I don't have to give up being a Pentecostal, really, right? Because he began to understand God is not limited by our ideas about religion. God doesn't fit into a religion. I think it's the first chapter here. It says, what church, what is it? Let's see. To which church does God belong? What brand of God do you use? There is no church that's big enough for God. There is no religion that's big enough for God. So he's helping to expand a consciousness about what God is for people who want to just feel like they have the only way in. They have the only truth, right? So Christians will say, Jesus is the only way. I just can't believe that. And if you believe that, I guess that's just you. But there's so much diversity on this. I was going to say on this planet, but in creation, there's so much diversity in creation. How could it be that God was like, well, I really only like one thing, and everything that's not that one thing is gonna perish, right? Anyway, so this is my story time talking about Bishop Carlton Pearson and the Gospel of Inclusion. If you haven't ever read it, I suggest you do, or go and watch the film. It is fictionalized version, but it's called Come Sunday. And Bishop Pearson did a lot. He did a lot for a lot of people who betrayed him and abandoned him. These same people who have platforms now to be Christian ministers and call themselves bishops and call themselves apostles, he did a lot for them too, even though they don't recognize it. The doors that he opened, the way that he made for them, it's a terrible thing. So, but what I want to say about him is, he did all that, right? He opened up some doors. He opened up, or at least attempted to open up the way we can even think about God, right? It is time to let go of these small, narrow views about God, such that we are excluding other people, ready to kill other people, um, ready to judge other people. I believe in Christianity. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Christianity say to judge not, lest ye be judged? And that the commandment that you're supposed to live by is to love your neighbor. And yet, those seem to be the last things that some Christians want to do. The first thing they want to do is exclude and judge. Now, I know there could be some Christians on here to say, well, that's what the Bible said. No, the Bible does not tell you to do it. If you believe theologically that that other person is wrong, then that's God's job. It ain't yours. God already gave you your instructions. Your instructions, not to judge and to love your neighbor. Those are your instructions. Everything else, then you just have to leave to God and handle your own business. All of us have to handle our own business. We have enough to do to handle our own business and clean up our own messes and work on loving people. Most of us don't want to, don't want to love other people we disagree with. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Let me know if you know about the bishop, and if you pray, whatever you might do, wrap him in compassion and grace. Like, try that. Wrap him in compassion and grace, for uh, a good job, right? And it became very hard for him at the end of his career. It became very hard for him. It's hard for anybody to lose everything that you built professionally. So at this point, what can we do? We can just usher him out with the best, with the best we have. So let me know your thoughts and comments. Are you familiar? Are you a Pentecostal? Are you a Reformed Pentecostal? Because when the Pentecostals talk about the Holy Spirit all the time. In African traditional spirituality, they talk about the Spirit of God too. It's really not that different. You can't put God in no box. God doesn't belong to any religion. I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments.